Hi and welcome back to the channel. Please like and subscribe. The channel's really growing well and there's some really great interactions, so leave a comment if you feel necessary. Today I'm here to show you what I think is actually the best guitar for the money across all genres of consumer. So this covers beginner guitar players, this covers amateurs, this covers professionals, and this covers people who are hobbyists as well. The only people who won't want this guitar are probably your guitar collectors who, relish the expensive, £10,000 vintage instruments. It's probably not for them, but I can see this guitar being for everybody else. So stay tuned. So let's just get started. This is the guitar that I'm talking about. This is an EART guitar, or an EART. No one really knows what to say. It's absolutely fabulous and an absolute bargain of a guitar. So let's just start with the ranges of what people tend to want to spend on guitars, and I'll talk about why this guitar would be perfect as well. Let's just start at the beginner end of things. So beginners, I teach. I have a little music school and I teach children and grown-ups, and they often, some of them buy lots of guitars, some of them only will have one guitar, and the parents will consult me about what to get for the next guitar if they're moving up. So if they're going from let's say a Spanish nylon string guitar over to an electric guitar, I often get asked around that, and usually it's a case of what comes around at a good price. They know the child is starting to stick to playing the instrument, and they buy electric guitars, and you can't really go wrong with guitars like Yamaha or Squiers, things like that. But the guitar I'm showing you today is kind of like a Telecaster design, which is a classic design. The reason why I would recommend this to anybody is because you can get any kind of sound from it. So you can make it sound like a heavy distorted rock guitar really well. You can make it sound really clean, and you can make it sound funky, you can make it sound jazzy, you can make it sound like a pop record. You can do pretty much anything on one of these because it's that classic Telecaster design. Let's just talk about the cost. So the cost of this guitar is around £320 on Amazon. Okay, and I have an affiliate link on the page where you can find it on there. I got this guitar used for £180, which in my mind is a complete bargain. And I'll tell you why. Let's just look at the reason why I think this is the best guitar for the money. First of all, this guitar has really top-end professional features. And I mean features that you will find on guitars that cost around £3,000. And if you were blindfolded, in some ways you might not be able to tell the difference between this and a £3,000 guitar. So the good thing about that is, if you're a beginner, this guitar will be a real pleasure to play, and it will keep you engaged and keep you motivated to continue playing. A lot of us guitarists that have been playing for a long time and may have had a journey where we started on guitars that were difficult to play. Well, it'd be like learning to drive in an Arctic lorry. You probably want to be learning to drive in something quite straightforward to drive, like a Fiat 500 or something that's small and easy to use. Gear changes be easier and slick, and power steering and things like that. This guitar is almost the equivalent of that. It has all these really easy things to make your playing better. And let's face it, you're not going to buy, as you progress through your playing, you're not going to buy worse and worse guitars. You're not going to make them harder to play. You're probably going to be looking for a guitar like this anyway. So this will save you money in not wanting to upgrade or buy more guitars. Now, I need to tell you, full disclosure, I'm an absolute guitar geek. I have loads of guitars. So for me, I've probably got about 10 to, at one point I had about 13 or 14 guitars. Now I've got about 9 or 10 guitars. But my search for a guitar like this, which is, super specced out custom type guitar, is over now with this. And that sort of lends its way into the professional realm, where people like guitars in the professional realms you know, you need to be able to put your trust into brands. So I do like Gibson. Gibson have a vibe, and they are good. Gibsons aren't all the same, so if you play a bunch of Gibson guitars, you will get different guitars, different feels to them. It doesn't mean they're all bad, it just means some are slightly better than others. I love Paul Reed Smith guitars, so I've got quite a couple of those, and they're very consistent. Taylor guitars are the same. Fender guitars, they're kind of in between, so they're really well made. Quite well, they used to be very consistent. The newer ones aren't so much. Really good vibe, good resales, and all that kind of thing. That's just a bit of background on why you would kind of buy a guitar, where you're coming from when you're buying it. Let's talk about some of the reasons why you would want this particular guitar and some of the features that it has that are just insane. So I'm just going to start with the neck. So the neck on this guitar is incredible for the value, incredible value for money. It's an incredible kind of piece of equipment here. So what we've got here is something called a compound neck shape. So the shape of the neck changes from this point here to this point here. Now they all do, you know, don't get me wrong, they all taper off or whatnot. But this starts with a U shape, which makes your open chords really easy to play. Now my daughter, she's 7, she's starting to play guitar now, and she uses a lug, which is this is her guitar. It's quite a fantastic thing to learn on. It only has 3 strings, and the neck on the lug is it's kind of a U shape if you used to look at it dead on. And that makes playing your chords and your single notes at the top really easy because of where your thumb is. So it's quite anthropometric. But as you start playing up the neck, you want to be reaching across these smaller frets. So if you're doing your solo work, which is, you know, that kind of stuff, the neck gets thinner, and it kind of feels more like a C shape rather than a U shape. So we tend to use lettering to describe neck shapes. You know, some shapes are a V shape. So that would be a starting point. The other cool thing about this, which is more of a thing that appeals to the professional musicians, they'll kind of see and feel the difference, is something called the radius of the fretboard. So the radius is the top part of the neck here, this part, and if you imagine this was part of a big circle, there'd be a radius to that circle. So the radius of this is 7.25 at the top, and as it goes further down the neck, it flattens out to 9.5, and that makes it, again, lends itself to better kind of playability. As you start learning to solo, your notes start to sound a bit better and feel a bit easier to reach for as you go higher. So again, it's a really professional, high level thing there that you don't normally see on guitars of this range. You wouldn't get a Squier with those features. You wouldn't get a Fender with those features until you are spending upwards of around £1,500. That's the kind of level that we're looking at here. It has, and this is when beginners get a guitar, I always tell parents to look for a guitar with a truss rod adjustment. So the truss rod adjusts the neck. It means that you could adjust the guitar playability and make it easier or whatever to play. The truss rods that go in there, if you don't know what you're doing, you could break them quite easily. You could over tighten them and then, you know, snap the neck truss rod breaks. You could, what happens most of the time is that people stick the wrong size Allen key into the truss rod and start moving it, and you misshape the truss rod inside. Now there's ways of fixing that, obviously, because that happens all the time in the mechanic world. But this has a wheel. You put a little rod in the wheel, you could put your screwdriver or a little pin, and you can just turn the wheel. When I got this guitar, it was delivered in about -1 temperature outside, and it was packaged quite strangely. I've never had a guitar packaged like it before. Again, I didn't buy it brand new, I bought it used. So someone had just wrapped it with bubble wrap and put some like toilet rolls over the neck, some cardboard. it was perfectly fine when I got it, absolutely great, but it was freezing, the guitar was. I received the package, I unboxed it, you know, took all the bubble wrap off, and I left it in my living room while I went and took my kids bowling. My wife went to the cinema with one child, I went bowling with the other. Come back about 4 hours later and it was still freezing cold. The neck was still in a good place. It was still the way it was when I got it. But yeah, I was amazed by that. The other thing with this neck is it's been roasted, so you might see specifications of guitars saying roasted maple neck. The roasted maple neck thing, I can take it or leave it from a practical perspective, but there's different theories as well that it makes your guitar sound different, a bit warmer. Some say it's brighter, so I don't know. There's a bit of a jury on it, and I'm not sure where the jury's sat. However, it dries the neck out differently, and a dry neck won't move as much, and it will sustain its integrity better. So, and you want that to really, especially if you're a beginner and especially if you're a pro. So as a pro, I do tours, guitar goes in the van, I have to leave it in the van overnight sometimes while I'm in a travel lodge or a premiere. In the morning I get back, and this has happened to me before last year on a tour with a really expensive guitar, and the neck had bent, and I had to then you know, whilst on the road, fix that situation using truss rod, using my bridge to get it playable again. Not ideal, but you know, with something like this, it's less likely to happen. Up here you've got a nut, so the nut material's actually important. There's a minutiae to that. So some people say graphite nuts are great, and especially if you use a whammy bar, you know, so you're bending the strings and stuff. For a beginner, a bone nut's great because you're playing your open chords and you get this lovely sustain. I mean, listen to how long that's going for. So you can do, you know, a bone nut is seen as a really good feature to have. The machine heads, now the best machine heads to get by, that some people say are locking machine heads, where you can lock your strings in place. There's two considerations people make with tuners, or three. One is how vintage they look. So I've changed machine heads on guitars or tuners because they don't have the right look. I've also changed them because I've wanted locking ones. I've also changed them because of the ratio. So these have a 21:1 ratio. So it's 21 turns to 1 full rotation of the string point. When you're changing strings, that means that you probably want a string tool that just, you know, rotates, because, you know, a winder. You probably want a string winder because that's going to be a lot of winds. When you're tuning your guitar, though, it's a lot easier to find that accuracy. And if you're a beginner, you've got a little bit more leeway. If you're a pro, you've got a few more turns to get it to where it needs to be. However, if those do move, which, you know, inevitably they do, especially if you're, you know, if you're a beginner and you're leaving them up a wall, or I used to put my guitars on my bed, and then I'd pick my guitar up and it'd be out of tune because the tuners would get squashed down. So sometimes that would happen. It's not going to be that out of tune. It's going to be quite easy to find that place again. So I find that, you know, that's quite a good feature if you look at it from that perspective. So the last thing about the neck is actually the most important thing, and it's the fret job. Now, fret jobs are, when you're buying budget guitars, and I mean budget guitars under £1,000, you can have problems with the fret jobs. And it's something that Fender is kind of known for at the moment, is having, you know, fret sprout, and other conditions where the frets aren't sitting properly. This guitar has the most beautiful fret job I've ever seen, and, you know, on a guitar that's cost me £180. The frets are shiny stainless steel, so they're less likely to wear out over time. And Frets do wear out over time. I've got two guitars. One is my Fender Stratocaster, where the strings are all dented now and it's game over for that neck. I'm going to have it refretted. And the Paul Reed Smith that I played for many years is my main. I had kind of one guitar that I used for everything. I wore the frets out. You know, I had to get new frets put on it. So this has got stainless steel, and they're rounded off on the edges, and the edges of the fretboard are super rolled, so you can run your hand up and down here with no worries about injury. It just feels really nice to play. So this guitar, this neck is probably worth more than the actual guitar in terms of the kind of quality and what you get. Next thing I want to talk about is the body. So Telecasters are I love Telecasters, but they're quite blocky as guitars. And that's because they don't have any cutout, any carving going on. It's literally a plank of wood. This guitar is made out of mahogany, which is not a common Telecaster thing. There are a few Telecasters with mahogany bodies. They're kind of like custom kind of job guitars that Fender bring out, or artist series. This has two pieces of mahogany bolted, stuck together, book matched apparently, which is when they put the woods and try and match the grain. It's got a translucent colour so you can see through it, and it's got curves. Look, so there's a body curve here, which is similar to what you get on a Stratocaster, and you've also got one here. Now there's a couple of brands that do this as standard. One's called Sir, one's called Tom Anderson. Those guitars are, you know, £3,000, £4,000 special guitars that are quite hard to get hold of. Even if you've got the money, it's hard to, you know, you might have to travel to get it. Beautiful little detailing here, and they actually dip where the neck joins. It's actually thinner than where the rest of the body is, so when you grab the neck at the top, you've got really easy access to it. The guitar has an old-fashioned Telecaster bridge, which I quite like. I like this kind of bridge because you can rest your hand on it and you can play from there. I quite like that. This one that I've got second-hand, that's why I like to buy second-hand guitars sometimes, because if they've got any problems, they get fixed. Amazon is brilliant for returns. If you've got a problem with a guitar like this, you buy it and the frets buzz or something like that, and you're not keen on it, you just send it back. You've got a really easy way of doing that. So you don't have to package it as much as you would as it came, and you take it. You know, I recently returned something back to Amazon, and I basically just took it to Asda, my local Asda, and they took it off me at the reception. So it's a hassle-free kind of situation, which means if you buy a second-hand one, it's probably been a good one to start with. You know, the chances are that it's not been it's you can't really neglect these things that much. They normally come bad in the first place if you're going to have problems. So, and the other cool thing is they've upgraded the bridge a little bit, so they've got brass bridge saddles here that have been compensated, which means these little distances here where the strings leave the bridge saddles, they are at different points, the different distances, which means I can get my E there and my E here to be exactly the same, in tune with each other. We call that intonation. So as you're playing up the guitar, that note there and that note there are pretty much the same in tuneness, intonated. So that's it really. So I'm just going to show you a few little tones here. What I'm going to do the actual clean versus distorted tones, and then I'm going to do a comparison to a Fender. So a Fender Telecaster, the Fender Telecaster I'm going to compare it to is a 1968 reissue, Japanese, made in Japan, quite revered after. I would say value of that guitar is around about £1,200 to £1,300 right now, and it's January 2025. That's what those go for. So I've got a guitar here that's retailing used for £180 versus a Fender Telecaster retailing used for £1,200 to £1,300, and you're going to hear the difference. Now, to me, this actually sounds thicker, warmer. It's got more to it. So I'm just going to play some tones. This is the clean. I'm using a Fender Deluxe sound using a Woodrow, UAFX Woodrow. And I'm just going to show you. These are my chords. And then this is the middle pickup selection. So it's got the bridge. And then this is the bridge. It's quite jangly, isn't it? Now I'm using the tone pot, so let me just play. This is with the tone pot fully up. So I'll take the tone off. And what tone, traditionally on these sorts of guitars, the tone just rolls treble in and out. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to play a little bit of gain. So I've got a pedal here. Yeah, I like that. That's on the neck pickup. I'll go on both of them. This is the little trick I do, right? If I go mid-range on the tone, turn my volume all the way up. Sounds a little bit like a Gibson Les Paul. I'll prove it. So if I get the Gibson Les Pauls retail at like £3, I think you can get a deal at the moment where they're £199. That's my Gibson Les Paul, and this is quite a special one. Yeah, so there you go. So it can sound like a Les Paul quite easily without a lot of tweaking. So another thing, weight. This weighs around 7.2. I weighed it 7.2 pounds, which is about a good weight for a guitar. £7 is kind of £7.5 is kind of like a sweet spot really for guitars. I don't think a guitar can be too light, but I don't think a guitar could be. I think they can be too heavy. So after about £8.5 for me, they're starting to get too heavy. My heaviest guitar is about 8.5, and then I've got that's my PRS McCarthy. I've got a Gibson Les Paul there that's been chambered out. It's weight 7.5, and I've got a hollow. I've got another chambered one as well. So I prefer the lighter ones, to be fair. We're gonna test out now the Telecasters versus a real Fender, so you can hear that difference. Just gonna play a nice G here. It's very warm on this guitar. bass on the middle pickup. Here's a bridge pickup. Now we've tested them out, we can hear that there's a difference, but this guitar seems to feel and sound great. And again, like I say, I think at the moment this is the best value guitar for everybody, for beginners, for professionals. You could gig this. The other cool thing is, a lot of us professional guitarists, we like to spend a lot of money on our guitars, which I do as well. Some of the gigs I've been doing, I do a lot of nice gigs in theatres and corporate hotels and things like that, festivals. I've done some gigs where I've been in quite dangerous places where there's been gangs of youths come up. One of my dear friends, Steve Sheldon, a group of people went up to him and started to ask him about his guitar that he had on his backpack. And he had, quite a special guitar in his backpack. He had like a Tom Anderson, which are like a really top-end custom shop guitar. I don't think you'd be able to replace that guitar. It's like a one-off. So if something bad were to happen, and he has children as well, it just, you're not going to be risking your life over guitars. It just makes you think, imagine if you had a cheaper kind of guitar. And he kind of inspired me with his story about that, because he then went out and bought a guitar that he could use for certain places, certain venues, that's inexpensive in comparison. And I think for me, that's what this does. It's my do it all, play any kind of venue. I can go anywhere with it. If I go somewhere dangerous, and somebody, pulls a knife on me over my guitar, they can walk off with it. I wouldn't be that happy, but, it's not my favourite Les Paul, which I've got down there, So it's something that I can sort of make an educated kind of plan with. And it brings quite a lot of joy. It's a really lovely thing to behold and to play. And that's why I think it's the best guitar for the money. Now, I do have an Amazon affiliate link, which you can follow if you're interested in this guitar. It comes in various colours and it comes really quickly. It comes within a couple of days. And, if you have a problem with it, you can send it back. Or if you get buyer's remorse or whatever, if you're not keen on it. So, you can follow that link and I'll get a tiny payment, but it'll be really good for me. But yeah, I'm quite interested to know if you have a guitar like this that you think, actually, I think this is the best guitar. It would be quite interesting to hear what they are. This is quite an interesting world for me. I normally have worked with well-known brands, guitars that are worth a lot of money. I'm just as impressed with this. So I'd like to hear thoughts and comments. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And until next time, be inspired.